Now we'll begin the first part of the waxing process. First thing I'm going to do is hot scrape. I take my softest penetrating wax, place it up against the iron, and you will notice that the iron never touches the ski base. We leave the iron up in the air, and I drip the wax onto the iron, drip the wax onto the ski without the iron ever touching the ski. So usually 2 fine lines of wax is enough. You'll notice that I always put the iron down on top of the wax and never on a dry base. And then with very light pressure, I will move slowly down the ski with the iron, melting the wax as I go and trying to get it to spread evenly from edge to edge on the ski base. So it may take multiple passes, and I go slow and gently, and my goal is to get the wax to remain molten behind the iron for 12 to 20 inches. The other thing you'll notice is that the iron is constantly moving. It never stops in any one place on the ski. Even when I come to the tip, I'm constantly moving the iron until I smooth it out, and I roll my way slowly down to the tail. And you'll see when I'm done that the wax is remaining liquid on the base. The other thing you'll notice is there is no smoke coming off the iron. I keep the iron temperature low enough to melt the wax and use my patience of going slowly, so by not putting a lot of pressure on the iron, I'm not squeezing the wax off the base of the ski onto the side edges. I sharpen up my scraper, and now I'm going to scrape off the wax while it's still in that molten form. This is what hot scraping is all about. If you look at the wax that comes off the scraper, it's filled with dirt, oil, and grease that's inside the ski base that can be picked up from your skiing on snow. I'm going to repeat this process 1 to 2 more times until the wax is no longer bringing up dirt. Once my wax is running clear, I know I've done enough hot scraping to finish off the ski. The one other thing I want to point out is that we're not using any chemical on the ski base at all. I'll brush out with a brass or a bronze or potentially a steel brush to clean all of the wax out of the pores and out of the pattern that's in the ski. So nice clean strokes with the brush. I apply a fair amount of pressure with both hands, and you can see behind my brush all the extra wax that's being brushed up behind. At that point, I'll take a little bit of fiberline, wrapped up on the roll, and draw it down the base to get rid of any of that debris. From here, let's move on to the finish wax. I use a harder wax that's going to help seal up the base, harden the base. When using harder wax, you need a slightly higher temperature with your iron. The nice thing about hot scraping is the ski base is already holding on to some of that heat, so you'll find that the wax will melt easily and spread easily because the base is already warm. Once again, I keep the iron moving at a nice steady pace, light pressure, so it evenly disperses the wax across the base and leaves the thickest possible liquid layer that I can on top of the base of the ski. Light, slow passes with the iron. I'm constantly readjusting the temperature so that I'm not smoking at all and not burning the wax. And just like with my hot scraping with penetrating wax, with my finish wax, I want to see 12 to 20 inches of molten or liquid wax behind the iron as I'm moving down. So as I get to the tip, I keep the iron moving back and forth. I make sure I'm spread all the way to the very end of the ski, and then I slowly start moving back at a pace which doesn't allow the iron to smoke and keeps the wax molten and penetrating into the base. The longer that we can keep the base warm, the better that the wax penetrates. So as you can see, I've got this nice shiny pool of wax following the iron as I move down the ski. And I go slowly and carefully, making sure that I'm not deviating left or right on the ski, just straight down the center. Once I've come to the end, that's it. I let it sit and cool. Once the wax is cooled, we're going to flip the ski up on its edge, and we're going to clean up with our scrubby. So I use my scrubby at this point to get rid of any excess wax that's spilled over the side. I'll clean the edge of the ski, the sidewall of the ski, and the bindings potentially on a ski that's got bindings on it. You could also use some Fiber Tex. For me personally, I prefer the scrubby. It does a great job, and it's always easier to use the scrubby when the wax is still fairly warm and soft. So I usually flip up right away and start cleaning my sidewalls. This will make it easier in the end to finish off my ski more quickly once the wax is cooled and I'm ready to scrape. So sidewall is clean, bindings are clean, and we're going to let the ski harden until it's time to scrape the ski. The longer you can let the wax harden, the better off you are. But if you're in a hurry, you at least wait till the ski is cooled back to room temperature. Resharpen your scraper, making sure that it's smooth and clean. And I do like to do this every time I come back to the ski to scrape. I always resharpen my scraper, either with my Panzer or with my paper. And once again, thumbs well above the edge, even pressure, I scrape off the wax on the ski. I'm trying to remove as much wax as possible. I'm not pushing super hard, but just hard enough to get all of the wax off edge to edge. At this point, I give a quick clean of the debris with my Fiberline, and I'm ready to pick up my brushes and start removing the excess material using my most coarsest brush first, which in this case can be bronze or brass. You could also use micro steel at this point. Even pressure strokes with the brush, and you can see the debris coming off in front of the brush, and I'm pushing it all the way off the end of the ski. In many cases, it takes multiple passes with the brush. The brush, along with scraping and along with skiing and re-waxing, will make the ski faster and faster over time. All of these efforts are for the purpose of making the ski glide better on snow. So the Fiberline, the scraping, the brushing, and the waxing, and last but not least, the skiing in, make that base go faster and faster. So now I'm going to brush out with my final finish brush. In this particular case, I'm using horsehair. And the idea is it's the brush that's going to peel out the last little bits of wax that are still clinging to the base to make sure that I'm running on the thinnest possible layer of wax will be fastest on snow. So same form of pressure, same movement, two hands, good ergonomics to help remove any of the excess wax that's still remaining in the grooves of the ski base. A little bit of Fiberline. And last but not least, my nylon brush for my polishing pass. Same strokes, same idea, and I'm still getting debris to move out of the base. Clean up with Fiberline. And we're ready for fast skiing.